Ever wonder why you feel incomplete? Do you know we are actually only half of one person, craving to find the other half? You were once one. Search your heart and you will know this is true. Ancient light. As a whole person, humans were once wise and powerful. We thought we could rival the gods, and Zeus took out his wrath on us, cutting us in two. This is why we always search for someone else to make us complete. It seems that humans are always searching for someone else to balance themselves out. This also explains the great variety of desires among humankind, as one searches for their own unique opposite. Even more important to understand is the threat that was made if we should continue to defy the gods. Zeus split us in two for our arrogance and our power. In our modern age, some even deny that the gods exist or confidently claim that there is only one god. Humans, in the past 200 years, have been growing too strong and even taking on the abilities of gods for themselves. Long-distance communication, flight, hurling weapons from the heavens, and other scientific advancements. Zeus has already given us a warning if we are to rival the gods again. What did he say would happen to us? Find out. Ancient light. Ever see the musical or movie musical Hedwig and the Angry Inch? If you haven't, I won't spoil it for you, but it is the story of a rock star, Hedwig, who was the victim of a sex change operation gone bad. Just watch the movie, you'll never forget it, and many of you will discover a new favorite film. One of the musical numbers is an animation of an ancient myth from Plato's book, Symposium. The myth tells of how humans were once complete. Plato has the playwright Aristophanes tell his own creation myth as a way to explain the nature of love. The creation myth is quite fantastic, but when the individual components of the story are broken down, we have a theory which addresses the complexity and longings of human existence. By the end, you will be able to determine from which proto-human species you came, and there are three: the sun, earth, and moon. I will explain these. The author of the Symposium where this myth came is Plato. Plato was a well-known philosopher from the classical era Athenian environment. He wrote some very interesting theories, but I'll only talk about this one. And the book that he wrote, Symposium, is basically where men are sitting around reclining and drinking wine. They're just sitting around talking about their own individual theories about love, the nature of love. In the Greek, symposium itself is from two different words, sum, which means together or with, and then the infinitive pinein, which means to drink. It just means to get together and get drunk, to get together and drink or what have you. And, most of the time, symposium was associated with the upper class. Not necessarily learned discussion, but a lot of that would be expected to take place. And, singing together and that sort of thing. And there was a class of prostitute that we know as a courtesan who was intelligent, often foreign, but nonetheless kind of a upper class prostitute who could attend these symposium events. But other women weren't encouraged to join. If you were a proper Attic wife, you were expected not to show up for a symposium. So let me go ahead and tell the story. Plato has Aristophanes tell this story. And when Plato writes this, Aristophanes has already passed away. So in the story, Aristophanes says, basically, I'm going to tell my idea about love, and he'll say, look at just the way we are, the nature of humanity, and you'll kind of know what happened. And so we don't know if he's saying that he really, really believes what he's getting ready to tell people, this creation myth that he's invented, or if it's just metaphorical, but it hints at the true nature of humanity. So it's a really neat, short passage, a creation myth even. So it's not just talking about love, it's talking about creation itself, so it has these religious overtones. Basically, we were originally 3 genders, he says. Male, female, and androgynous. The word androgynous is made of the Greek words for man and woman, the 2 words man and woman. And those are just put together, so it's a man-woman. So the androgynous gender contains both of the sexes. So there are 3 genders walking around. The 3 genders were actually more complex than the genders we have today. Because remember, we were whole. We were once basically 2 people, instead of now we're only 1 person looking for something else to make us complete. So of the 3 entities, they were known as the children of the sun, the earth, and the moon. The sun children were made of 2 men, and the earth children were made of 2 women. The moon children contained 1 male and 1 female, so they had different male and female parts and that sort of thing. And so there were 3 genders. So everyone had 2 heads, and they could do 2 things at once even. How many times have you ever felt like you should be doing more than 1 thing at a time? Or you're in the middle of doing something you think is important, but you're thinking about something else that you think is important, and vice versa. And so the mythology could explain to us why we were better at multitasking in the past than we are now. So we had 4 arms and 4 legs. Maybe we looked like some depictions of a Hindu god. So as of now, you should ascertain that we had double of everything. And so with our ability to multitask, enhanced brain power, super speed and momentum, because basically we can do with all our hands and feet, as Plato describes it through the voice of Aristophanes, is that we had super speed and momentum because of all the arms and legs, and we're actually really powerful, and super smart, and we're also ambitious. But we became too proud, and we began to try to get into Olympus. If we could, we would lay our hands on the gods. So the gods got together, and they're like, okay, what's going on here with these humans? They really think there's something else. I guess we're going to have to do to them what we did to the Titans, the giant race of Titans, which is really their fathers and mothers, which is, kill them with thunderbolts. But instead, Zeus decided to make use of them as basically, I think, tools of worship. They would worship the gods like the Greeks would do. They'd make sacrifices, talk about the gods, be concerned with them, try to enhance the lives of the gods, But Zeus also felt like he had to punish humans and weaken them so they don't try that again. After the fall of Napoleon, Prince Metternich was attempting to create a balance of power throughout Europe so it wouldn't happen again. So Zeus is balancing power by reducing the power and dividing everyone and splitting them. So they can't multitask as well. They don't have as much brain power, and they can't create as much momentum, I think, essentially, is the idea behind their great power. Zeus, instead of using his thunderbolts, he decided to cut humans in 2. So from then on, we walked and move about, kind of like we do now. Only 2 legs and 2 arms and 1 head. And of course, it's at this point that Zeus noticed humans began to really seek others. Humans are really into embracing another and kissing, embracing, and copulating, and even a desire to not be alone, a longing for someone else to be there. But hold on now, we weren't yet the exact same physical form that we are today. Now Zeus is watching this interesting species, so to speak, take place. It doesn't say how long this took, but Zeus eventually took pity on mortals because when he watched us, we would attempt to embrace others, and he noticed some peculiar things about how we would copulate and how we would always want to be with someone else, so he thought he would be helpful. Zeus was like, you know what? I punish these guys are a lot weaker, and they're not as wise and ambitious as they used to be, or something, and they worship me. They've been good for X amount of time. So I'm going to do them a favor. I'm going to create a helpful aid for these awkward humans who desire each other so much, and they get married and desire to stay together. And perhaps this is an explanation for a tendency towards monogamy. So this is what Zeus did. He made one more anatomical adjustment. instead of the genitals hanging off the side of the body in this second stage of human existence, like it once did. So, maybe hanging off the side of your hip or the side of your thigh, there are your genitals. Or maybe the side of your waist, you would have your genitals. And so God moved the genitals of the man and the woman to their front and middle. So kind of in the middle and below the belly, like it is today. This is how helpful Zeus was. He noticed things. He noticed things. So this way, with the genitals in front and kind of in the middle of the body, humans can now join together in copulation while they embraced or kissed and sank into each other's eyes. Perhaps this is about the same time the Kama Sutra needed to be invented. So people were like, oh wait, how do we do this? Humans would now have to invent new bedroom habits. The physical repositioning must have been very helpful, though. Acts of lovemaking with one's genitals hanging off to the side of the body probably killed a lot of the intimacy. Zeus was helpful in the matter. He wasn't just seeking perpetual vengeance. So hats off to Zeus. Thank you, Zeus. So this begs the question for the listener out there. This is where you chime in, and this is where you decide for yourself, and feel free to comment or come up with interesting variations of interpretation in the comment section. So this begs the question for you, what are you? I mean, if we are half of a two-part whole, then what gender are we when this union is restored? So what gender would you be? So Plato, in the voice of Aristophanes, states that there were three. So he says, we crave to have the other half to restore ourselves. This is a formula for discovering our other side. So basically, here it is. Whatever you crave in another person is probably indicative of your other half, unless it's some sort of diagnosis of narcissism and you're looking for someone exactly like yourself, perhaps. It's not always an absolute rule, of course. But the theory is that you kind of crave something to complete you, right? So if you crave the opposite sex, if you're a man who craves a woman or a woman who craves a man, then you're a child of the moon. If you're a woman who desires another woman to make her complete, then you're a child of the earth. And finally, if you're a man who seeks another man to make himself complete, then you're a child of the sun. So what are you? Sun, earth, moon? In this formula, it's kind of fun to decide for yourself. What are you? Who are you? What were you once? Figure out what you once were, perhaps, is a good way to phrase that. But let us not forget, perhaps we've discovered something about ourselves, and perhaps we can explain why we long for something else and the nature of that longing itself. If anything, we learn a lot about Plato's Symposium in this section. But don't forget, Zeus then gave us a threat to ponder. If we grow too powerful and try to uproot the gods as we did once before, he said he'll split us again. First time we had, 4 arms. Now we have 2 arms. We had 4 legs, now we have 2 legs. We had 2 heads, now we have 1 head. But if we're split again, that's not good. Let's not grow too powerful again. In the modern era, that's happening, and Zeus hasn't split us yet, but you better watch out. We're going to get split again. Think about it. We'll be hopping around on 1 leg, we'll have 1 arm, and perhaps only 1 lobe of the brain if we're split in half. So we'll definitely need another person just to get around efficiently and have a life and not just be one-sided. So the ancient Greeks didn't perceive that our thinking mechanism was seated in the skull necessarily, so the brain comment is purely modern. So be warned if we grow too powerful again, but with this knowledge, we can at least know the origin of our own loneliness. Doesn't that make you happy? Ancient Lies.